আমি যখন কলকাতায় আসতাম সাধারণত অশোকদার বাড়িতেই থাকতাম, আর আমার কলকাতায় আসার একটা মেইন অ্যাট্রাকশন ছিল অশোকদার সঙ্গে আড্ডা দেওয়া। সুতরাং এই যে আমার সুযোগ দেওয়া হয়েছে অশোকদার জন্য শ্রদ্ধাঞ্জলি জ্ঞাপন করার, আমি সেটার জন্য কৃতজ্ঞ। অশোকদা নিজে যদি ওনার স্মৃতিসভায় কেউ বাংলায় না বলে ইংরেজিতে বলতো, অশোকদা নিশ্চয়ই খুব বিরক্ত হতেন। কিন্তু আমি যে কথা বলতে চাই পুরোটা আমি বাংলায় বলতে পারবো না, উনি নিশ্চয়ই আমায় ক্ষমা করতেন। আমি আপনার থেকে ক্ষমা চাই যে আমি একটু মিশিয়ে মিশিয়ে ভাষায় মিশিয়ে মিশিয়ে বলবো। In my view, Ashokda is one of the most outstanding figures in post-independence India because of the remarkable qualities that he had. He was, of course, exceptionally brilliant, but he wore his brilliance very lightly. He had a sense of humor which could be directed against himself. He had the capacity to laugh at himself. He was ideologically very firm, never budged an inch in his ideological commitments. But at the same time, he was very charming, very gracious, very courteous to others with whom he may not agree ideologically. উনি যখন পার্লামেন্টে ছিলেন ওনার খুব ভালো সম্পর্ক ছিল কংগ্রেস, এই যে রাম জেঠমালানি, টি.এন. চতুর্বেদী, ডক্টর করণ সিং আদি অনেক নন লেফট, অ্যান্টি লেফট মেম্বারসদের সঙ্গে। একটা স্টোরি উনি বলতেন যে একবার ওনার কোনো মেডিকেল এমার্জেন্সির জন্য এখানে আসতে হলো, দিল্লি থেকে কলকাতা আসতে হলো, ইভিনিং ফ্লাইট হি হ্যাড টু ক্যাচ। He was supposed to speak the next day, but since he had to catch the evening flight, Ram Jethmalani told him, যে দেখো আমার এখন বলার আছে, আমি যখন শুরু করব তুমি একটা পয়েন্ট অফ অর্ডার তুলবে, পয়েন্ট অফ অর্ডার তুলে তোমার যা খুশি, যা তোমার বলার কথা বলে যাও, তোমার যখন শেষ হবে তারপর আই শ্যাল রিজিউম মাই স্পিচ। এইরকম একটা সৌহার্দ্য যেটা কি নন লেফট, অ্যান্টি লেফট এলিমেন্টসদের সঙ্গেও ওনার ছিল, দ্যাট ওয়াজ আ হলমার্ক অফ হিজ পার্সোনালিটি। I consider him an ideal communist intellectual because he had a remarkable combination of qualities of head and heart. Ashokda acting থেকে, from the point of view of his heart, he was morally outraged, he was impetuous, he was impatient. In fact, at the beginning of 1970s, when there was a big attack on the left in this state, Ashokda always used to ask the party leaders, "Amader kichu kora uchit." Pramod Babu would tell him that a communist must have patience. Ashokda's patience ashto from his mind, because while he was impetuous in terms of his heart, his brain, his mind prevented, restricted, checked this impetuosity. It was an ideal combination. কারণ একদিকে his impetuosity could not really go out of control because of his brain, and at the same time his intellect, the pessimism of his intellect is something which never got him down because the optimism of the will that was generated by his heart. It was a remarkable, optimal combination of head and heart which actually made him an ideal communist intellectual. Ashokda's contribution to the cause of the left, to the cause of communism, is something which is likely to remain underestimated. কারণ আমরা যারা বামে আছি, আমাদের একটা নর্মাল ফিলিং হচ্ছে that contribution to the left means কোথায় গিয়ে শ্রমিকদের মধ্যে, কৃষকদের মধ্যে যদি আপনি আন্দোলন করেন, that is the real contribution to the left, which is true. কিন্তু there can be other kinds of contributions to the left. One contribution to the left is actually agitating, working among the basic classes, workers and peasants, making great sacrifices in their cause. But at the same time, society consists of a multiplicity of classes. Society consists of a multiplicity of contradictions. Finding your way, negotiating your way through these multiplicity of classes, through these multiplicity of contradictions, is a task of the left. It's a very serious task of the left, because unless this task is fulfilled, no matter how committed and dedicated you are, you still would not be able to make much advance. And this task of the left comes from theory. Ashoka's contribution to the left was in terms of ideas. 1977 left front government really began with an enormous stock of ideas. Amader 1967, 1969, first United, second United front governments were governments that happened to get formed. We had not got the ideas, the stock of ideas with which to run those governments. But 1977 was different. The 1977 government really began with a stock of ideas. আমি বলছি না এই আইডিয়াগুলো শুধু অশোকদার ছিল না। There was Satyabrat Sen, there was Ghosh and others, and these ideas could not have been translated into action unless they had the support of Jyoti Basu and Pramod Dasgupta. But they had the support, because of which the 1977 left-front government had some remarkable achievements to its credit. In fact, these days, it is common to run down the left-front government, so I just want to spend some time discussing this achievement. For a very long time, researchers were talking about the fact that Bengal, which means not just West Bengal, also Bangladesh, had an agrarian impasse. There is a very well-known scholar called James Boyce, who is a professor in University of Massachusetts, Amherst, who wrote a book called The Agrarian Impasse in Bengal. Bengal, দুদিকে পূর্ব এবং পশ্চিম, Bengal had got into a situation because of the long years of colonial rule where its agrarian economy had become completely stagnant. And সত্যি হয়েছিল, it had been completely stagnant because under colonialism, first of course there was a remarkable agrarian structure that developed. যেখানে you had so many layers of intermediaries. There were 27 layers of intermediaries between the cultivator on the one hand and the overlord on the other. There was a peculiar, complex agrarian structure. অন্যদিকে, it was also the case that the colonial government made no investment at all in irrigation, in rural infrastructure, in the Bengal economy. Because Bengal was under the permanent settlement. No colonial investment could occur unless it earned a minimum 5% rate of return. Colonial government, the amount of money it is going to get from Bengal is fixed because of the permanent settlement. Therefore, any investment in Bengal was not going to, or suppose in irrigation in Bengal, was going to get 0 rate of return for the colonial administration. Therefore, no investment was undertaken. There was also another theory which was put forward by the Royal Commission on Agriculture in 1926, which said that the problem with Bengal agriculture is not too little water. Bengal doesn't need irrigation. Problem with Bengal agriculture is too much water and not too little water. As a result, in this state, there had been very little public investment in irrigation and in other rural infrastructure, and at the same time there had been this extremely complex agrarian relations which had developed. The left front government broke that. The left-front government broke the agrarian impasse in Bengal. On the one hand, it undertook very substantial investments in agriculture, and please remember, this was a time when the government was financially really tight. Ashokda মাঝে মাঝে দিল্লি আসতেন, আমাদের বাড়ি আসতেন, and he used to say that, you know, our checks may not be respected by the Reserve Bank of India next week because our overdraft is so large. In other words, it was really in a very tight financial situation. And what is more, তখনও এখানে একটা খুব জোরে power crisis চলছিল, so investment had to go to the power sector. So notwithstanding that, the very substantial increase in investment in irrigation, in rural areas, in agriculture and so on, number one. Number two, there was a substantial attack on the agrarian relations. Akdike Operation Barga, which means recording of sharecroppers. Then it became obligatory that whoever tilled the land would reap the harvest. তার আগে কৃষকরা, ভাগ চাষীরা, they would actually till the land, কিন্তু জোরদারের লোকগুলো এসে they would take away the harvest. But the left-front government made one very simple thing which had a revolutionary consequence, that whoever tills the land must reap the harvest. Then the harvest is handed, whatever share belongs to the landlord, is handed to the landlord, but against a receipt. On the basis of that receipt, then the tenant can go and get money from the bank because that receipt says that the tenant has a right to the land. As a result, you actually had, for the first time, investment is taking place at the level of the farmers, of the peasants. The peasants got some security, and therefore you had, on the one hand, big public investment, on the other hand, encouragement to the tenants, because of which Bengal became the fastest growing state in terms of agricultural output among all Indian states for a long time, for almost a decade. Now this was a remarkable achievement. And of course, coming out of this achievement was this whole idea of panchayats. Again, panchayats is not a traditional Marxist idea. We talk of Soviets, yes, but Soviets are class organizations. The whole idea of a panchayat is something which, of course, the Marxists have always accepted it, at least in our country, but it is not something which was our priority. We didn't always think of panchayats as the first thing that we must introduce. In West Bengal, there have been no elections to panchayats for decades. But the left-front government introduced that democratic decentralization of powers to the panchayats, because of which, as Dr. Mishra was saying, that there was a substantial revival of the rural economy, and this also had its effects in terms of rural crafts, rural industries, employment, etc. So the left-front government really, and Ashokda and others brought a stock of ideas to the left-front government, because of which the left-front government was able to have some historical achievements, real outstanding achievements to its credit. The second kind of idea which the left-front put forward at that time related to center-state relations. Now again, center-state relations are not necessarily an obvious Marxist idea. It is to do with the distribution of power and resources in the center and the states, and of course this distribution of power and resources is something on which generally the left did not have any very strong ideas. It had ideas, it would generally support this, but it did not have very strong ideas. Therefore, a tendency towards centralization, and by the way, central planning, which we all like, is one which presupposes a certain degree of centralization. Therefore, there is a left predilection towards supporting a certain amount of centralization. Constituent Assembly, when it was discussing the Constitution, Professor K.T. Shah had brought a resolution saying that we should declare India to be a federal republic, and that was shot down. It was not agreed. Subsequently, there had been a great centralization of power, and therefore great centralization of power when even the Finance Commission that used to be appointed according to the Constitution once every 5 years to distribute resources between the centre and the states, its members, its chairman, its terms of reference were all determined by the centre. It is still the case even today. So there had been a great centralization of power. So when the West Bengal government, when the left front government raised this issue of centralization of power and resources being too much, and that there has to be a proper devolution of power and resources from center to the states, it found substantial support among all the other opposition-ruled states. Because of which we had a series of conclaves of chief ministers convened generally by the left, by Jyoti Babu, of course, and Ashok Mitra, who did the work, and it was convened by the left. The last of these was the Srinagar conclave. Ashok used to say that really that was the highest level, the zenith of left's influence politically in the country. 10 years later, the prime ministership of the country was offered to Jyoti Babu. That was not accepted because the party decided against it. But the fact that that prime ministership was offered in mid-90s was because of the work which the left front had done. And in a sense, actually, the zenith of the left influence was not in the mid-90s, but somewhat earlier in the mid-80s. And that is because, again, of this new idea which was thrown into the Indian polity. The French philosopher Louis Althusser has a term called over-determination. Society te সবসময় একটা শুধু contradiction থাকে না between the oppressed and the oppressors. অনেকগুলো contradiction থাকে in which this basic contradiction is reflected or refracted. One such contradiction was the contradiction in the state, centralization and decentralization, and by the left taking up that contradiction, it really became a very, very powerful force, really capturing the imagination of the country. A friend of mine who was a Maharashtrian used to say, I don't know who the finance minister of Maharashtra is, but I know who the finance minister of West Bengal is. Because the finance minister of West Bengal was known all over the country as a person who had raised this issue, which was then beginning to agitate everybody. Now, of course, Ashok, being a person who was very principled, his relationship with the left was of a peculiar kind, which I'll very briefly discuss. But Ashok resigned from finance ministership in 1986. Of course, at that time, Indira Gandhi's assassination had already kind of generated a certain sympathy wave in favor of Congress. Rajiv Gandhi had got elected with unprecedented majority, and you found that the issue of center-state relations tended to recede to the background. With neoliberalism, something else happens. This not many people know. আপনি জিজ্ঞেস করতে পারেন যে এই দেশে এতগুলো পার্টি ছিল, এতগুলো আইডিওলজি ছিল, they were socialists, they were communists, they were the descendants of the Dravid movement, অনেক রকমের, বিভিন্ন রকমের আইডিওলজি, বিভিন্ন রকমের tendencies, political tendencies. How come neoliberalism captured this country? How is it that actually this neoliberalism managed to iron out all these differences and capture this entire country? Behind that was a real machination, and that machination was that the central government through the 1990s gave loans. When the center gives plan assistance, that is actually a loan. It is not just kind of an interest-free assistance that আমরা নিয়ে নাও বাস. When the center gives anything, any kind of transfers to the states, I'm not talking about finance commission transfers, but all other transfers, it charges an interest. The center in the 1990s jacked up the interest it was charging on all the money that it was giving out to state governments. Now, if you jack up the interest rate, there is a very simple rule in economics. that if the interest rate you pay on a loan is greater than the growth of your income, rate of growth of your income, suppose your income is growing at 10% and your interest rate that you have to pay is 12%, then you get into a debt trap. The centre got state governments into a debt trap by deliberate, Shylock-like overcharging of interest rates. And in the case of Bengal, it was shocking. Because in Bengal, small savings used to be collected from the people at large at 6% interest rate. Now, typically, all these small savings that were collected by a central organization used to be then borrowed by the state government, because state governments were not directly allowed to collect small savings. The same small savings of the people of Bengal, which was collected by the centre at 6%, used to be loaned to the West Bengal government at 12%. It was a very clear case of the central government actually charging money to the West Bengal government for loans that were taken from the people of West Bengal itself and overcharging to a point where it got the states into a debt trap. And consequently, then Finance Commission would come and say, yes, yes, we shall give you assistance against the debt trap, kintu you have to agree to the following terms. You have to agree to implement the neoliberal agenda. এইভাবে, generally, they rode roughshod over the states, and of course, then GST was introduced, which basically means that whatever little scope that the state governments had for raising their own resources and so on is now completely gone. The GST is such an attack on the rights of the state governments that, recently, maybe about a few months ago, I met Amartya Sen, who asked, he's my teacher, he said, but tell me, this GST is such an attack on states, why isn't there a protest against it? So I said, দেখুন, আমরা তো খুব চেঁচামেচি করছি. But next time you come to India, you please say this, what you are telling me, because then the press would take what you say seriously. They don't take what we say very seriously. Anyway, so the point is that now with the GST, the centralization of powers and resources is complete. Now, the centralization of powers and resources is a condition, or fascism uses the centralization of powers and resources. We tend to think in India, we tend to see many aspects of fascism. We tend to see its attack on secularism. We see its attack on democracy, but we often do not see its attack on federalism. Its attack on federalism is an integral part of the development of fascism. And in fact, the basis for this attack had already been created because of the centralization of powers and resources that had taken place earlier. And this centralization now means that the center can arm twist any government and say, you listen to us, otherwise we are not to give you money. So this is now being increasingly used by the fascist elements in the country to consolidate their power. This growth of fascism, in turn, is because of the acute crisis which is gripping the economy. Again, the current government, the Modi administration, is now celebrating 4 years of being in power. Last night, just before coming here, I was making a calculation. You take the income of the people engaged in agriculture, everybody, landlords, rich peasants, poor peasants, laborers, everybody. Take the income of that sector between 2013-14, which is the year before Modi came, 2017-18. You deflate that income by a consumer price index to find out how much is the command over goods and services that this income implies. And you find that per capita, the real command over goods and services of the agriculture-dependent population, including landlords, rich peasants, everybody, in 2017-18 is lower than it was in 2013-14. And of course, if we make the assumption, which we must, that the landlords, the rich peasants and so on are not worse off That means there's a huge burden which is being imposed on the small peasants, the poor peasants, the agricultural laborers, the kind of semi-proletariat, and so on. So that you actually find that there's a huge burden being imposed, and this burden is itself a reflection of the kind of crisis that world capitalism is in. And of course, because of that crisis, the kind of centralization, I'm not saying fascism operates only through centralization of power. It operates in many, many different ways. It operates by invoking a notion of nationalism. If you're opposed to us, then you're anti-national. It operates by making the Muslim into the other. That Muslim, he is really a traitor. He is really no good. He is the other. He is not with our nation. He is an enemy with it. And it also operates by the centralization of powers and resources, which gives a stick with which you can beat all your opponents. Ashok's great credit, it is to Ashok's great credit that he had the prescience to see that the fight for an authentic federal structure is really a fight for democracy. It's really a fight to ward off this kind of fascist trend. Jyotibabu used to put it very well. Jyotibabu used to say that it is not a question of center versus the states. It's not a question that the states must get more power and that power is simply snatched away from the center. Jyotibabu's argument was that the center and states both would become, as a totality, stronger if we have greater devolution of resources and powers from the center to the states. So it is not a zero-sum game. Someone snatches power from somebody else. The question is one of strengthening the structure as a whole. And of course, the whole argument of the left front in that period for devolution of powers and resources from center to states was really to strengthen the Indian polity, to strengthen Indian democracy as a whole. But as I said, it is unfortunate that Ashok resigned from the government. He had some principled positions relating to questions of education, and because of that, he actually tended to resign. But Ashok's relationship with the left was always of a kind where no matter what differences, no matter whether he resigned or not, he always considered himself a part of the left. And this was also reciprocated by the left itself. জ্যোতিবাবু একবার বলেছিলেন, আমরা জানি উনি আমাদের সঙ্গে যতবার ডিফারেন্স হোক, উনি আমাদের বিরুদ্ধে কখন যাবেন না। And Ashok never parted company with the left. He was always a part of the left. There's a very hilarious story. Soon after he had resigned, he was appointed, along with me, as an advisory member of the Kerala State Planning Board. You know, Kerala in 1987, there was a government that came in Kerala, LDF government, with E.K. Nayanar, Comrade E.K. Nayanar as the chief minister. That set up a new planning board, of which I.S. Gulati was the vice chairman, Ashok and I and 3 other people who were advisory members. So we used to have meetings. So after our first meeting, Comrade Nayanar said, come to my room, come to my office. So Ashok and I went to his office. We had some tea and gossip. After that, when we got up, Nayanar looked at Ashok and said, see you at the party congress. Ashok was so amused that he had resigned from the party, but Nayanar, a member of the Politburo, was not even aware of it, because of the fact that no matter whether he resigns or he doesn't resign, it was always taken for granted that he is with us. And in fact, therefore, Ashok would have been very happy if he had been today and seen how the left front and the party is really remembering him. I think the issues on which he had fought, the issue of the left front, and of course